We had a group of about 9 people. Freshman year, every night we would meet for dinner at 5:35 and sit in the dining hall till 7 or 8 p.m. eating overcooked broccoli and tater tots. Afterwards, we would wander to someone's dorm to study till 2 or 3 in the morning. We told each other stories and secrets. We fell in love with each other and went on adventures together. It was perfect. It really was. But then it began to fracture. People got in small arguments that snowballed into large arguments, ending in a combination of letters and shouting and wild accusations being thrown at one another. And then as quickly as it had started, it all fell apart. Making friendships is one thing, but keeping them is something else entirely. Since then, I've learned strategies and tactics to better keep friends that I love. There's a lot that I wish I knew at that time. And yes, there are some of those friendships that would have fallen apart anyway, but there were others that could have been prevented. This is everything I've learned about keeping good friends. Stay curious about your friends. Ask people genuine questions that you actually want to know the answer to. It can become really easy when you're hanging out with someone, whether it's someone you're romantically involved with or just a friend, that we start to kind of anticipate what they're going to do. We start to kind of anticipate how they're going to respond to things. So it doesn't even feel worth it to like ask them their perspective on something specific. It feels like we can already predict the moves that they're going to make. Whereas when I remember that people are far more complicated and multifaceted than I give them credit for, I continue to ask them questions, not anticipating what their answer is going to be. Asking people genuinely, what do you think about that, can be really powerful, especially when you want to know the answer to that question. Reach out to people for no reason. I think to some degree in this age of like hypersensitive texting culture, it can feel really weird to just call someone out of the blue. So much of the time I feel like I'm scheduling calls with people like, oh, are you available at 7? I'll give you a call. Whereas when I just receive a call from someone out of the blue, I'm never upset that I received that call. Like maybe I can't take the call in the moment, maybe I have to let it go to voicemail, but I'm never frustrated that I received a call from someone. And when people reach out to me without any warning, without any reason, it just makes me feel like, oh, they were thinking about me. Like, that's really cool. And when I've reached out to people, I've never regretted it. Even if they can't pick up the phone at that moment, even if I'm just sending them a text saying, hey dude, like I was just thinking about you. And perhaps it's just my own insecurities, but I often feel this sense of like, oh, nobody really cares about me. Like no one's thinking about me. You know, like when you kind of get in that mindset, but just to receive a voicemail of like, hey dude, I was thinking about you, wonder what's up. Or a text that's just a link to a YouTube video. Hey, I saw this and I thought of you. It shows that there's an alive connection in that relationship. And it also makes it feel so much more organic. Like you don't need permission to reach out to someone. Buy your friend a drink or dinner when you can afford it. Like if you're in a place where you can afford the extra $20, buy your friend dinner or a drink. Don't tell them, just take care of it. And this is not in a patronizing way. It isn't like, oh, I'm taking care of you. No. Like doing nice things for each other is a critical and important part of friendship. And just doing nice things for each other out of the blue without any reason goes such a long way. I was at dinner a couple of weeks ago and my brother-in-law just like took care of the check. Just out of the blue. Suddenly like, oh my God. And he absolutely did not have to do that. But it was so kind of him. And in a very real way, it just made me feel cared about and like, oh, wow. Like genuinely thank you. Like that was really nice of you and there was no reason why you had to do that. If you appreciate something specific about someone, tell them. It's no secret that everyone loves to receive compliments, but I think that oftentimes compliments can feel kind of canned and generic. Like I've definitely received things in my life where it's just like, do you actually mean that? Or is that just something that like you're sort of scripted and programmed to say? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but compliments can kind of feel flat. When there's something genuinely specific about someone that you notice, point it out. I was on the phone with a friend a couple of weeks ago and he said, I really admire your ambition to go out and do things in the world. Like that specificness of a compliment has stayed with me now for like 3 or 4 weeks. Like as I'm doing things, I'm just thinking about what he said to me. I think it stuck with me so much because it was so specific. And it was also something that I do think about. Like that's something that I am trying to do. And so I am going out in the world trying to actualize things, trying to make things happen. And for someone to look at me and say, hey, I see that in you and I appreciate it and that's awesome, filled me with joy. Celebrate friends when they succeed. One of the best indicators of like a solid friendship is, do you celebrate other people when they get things that they want? Or do you envy them when they get those things? And I've noticed this in the past, and I really hate this part of myself, where there's someone and they will fail to get the thing that they're after. And I feel a sense of joy when they fail to get the thing. And every time that I've felt that, the next reaction is, whoa, that's a really, really bad sign. Like, it should never be the case that when someone fails to get something, that I then feel any sort of positive emotion about that. And now, when I have friends that do succeed, maybe they get the job that they've been after, or they end up getting the girl, and I'm able to celebrate them and not sit there and go, oh wow, I wish that was me, our relationship is so much stronger. But it also has to come from a genuine place. Like, I have to genuinely feel like I want them to succeed. Conflict cannot be ignored. If somebody does something that really bothers you, and people have done things to me that like really, really bug me, like they made me feel really embarrassed, or they made me feel really scared, or they made me feel really heartbroken, or they made me feel really ashamed. And somehow in those moments, I've been able to justify to myself, oh yeah, but like, it's no big deal. I don't actually need to say anything about it, whatever, whatever. Down the line, what I found is that those small infractions can very easily add up. So it might be one instance that it feels like, why would I even bring that up? But then that happens again. And you go, okay, well, but whatever. And then it happens another time. And then subtly, subconsciously, I'm starting to spend less time around this person because I don't like the way I feel when I'm around them. I don't feel seen. I feel like they make me upset. But they have no way of knowing that they do that because I'm not communicating that to them at all. So they're just going through life. I'm the one getting upset, but I'm also not communicating to them effectively that they're the ones making me upset. But over time, it gets to a point where a number of these infractions build up that it's like pressure behind a dam, and then suddenly that dam bursts. And now I'm very upset with this person, and they thought nothing was wrong in the relationship. And I've had a couple of relationships, especially from college, that have blown up because of this, where there was just a series of small infractions that took place over a couple of years. And at the time, I totally justified it to myself of, it's no big deal. It's gonna be totally fine. No worries. I can get over this. But over time, those built up to the point where those relationships just broke apart. It can be really scary to go into those situations and actually have those conversations, to sit down and say, hey, I know this thing that you did was really little, but it made me feel embarrassed. Can we talk about this? But I think having those conversations are like course corrections on a relationship. Relationships are complicated and they're messy. And if we don't keep them in alignment, then it's very easy for them to go askew. It's not rude to hold people accountable for their word. When people say they're going to pay you back, you can follow up and make sure they're going to pay you back. When people say they're going to be there at a certain time and they're not there at that certain time, it's okay for you to go without them. I've had moments in my life where I feel the need to be nice, and I feel like I need to let these things go, and I feel like, like they must just be in such a tough spot, like they have so much more going on in their life than I do, like there's no way they could possibly do this thing. I know that they're trying their best, but it's still okay to hold them accountable. It's not rude. It's not like I'm changing the rules of the game. In fact, if I tell someone we really have to leave by 10:30 or else we're gonna be late, and I call them at 10:30 because they're not there and they're still in bed, it's okay for me to leave. Now, I shouldn't berate them. I shouldn't be rude to them, but it is certainly okay not to be held up by them. Similar to the last example, these are kind of small infractions that over time can build up and put pressure on the back of that dam. And by holding people accountable to their word, to doing what they say they're gonna do, we can have more honest and full relationships. There's very little difference between venting and talking shit about someone. I've often had this thought that like I need to process things, like something happens and I need to process it. And so, especially when I was in a large group of people and we were all kind of friends and everyone knew each other, something would happen with someone and then some other subsection of that group would start kind of processing that thing. But very quickly, that processing turned into much more like gossip than it did actual processing. And over time, I've realized that yes, there are certainly things that happen where it's like, whoa, I need to talk with someone about that. But the switch is, maybe the person I should talk to is not someone who's in this group. Number one, if like everyone knows everyone else, then it can very quickly turn into like this, oh yeah, and then they said this thing last week and that connects to this. And then you start like building this like false gossip reality around someone, which is just like gross and weird. But the other piece of it is that if I'm talking to someone who's impartial, when I'm done saying the thing that I need to process, the conversation's over. It's not like they then have something to add to this conversation because they've also had a similar experience with this person. Instead of talking shit, it ends up just being talking about this thing. And over time, I found that to be a much more healthy experience. That like, this thing happened, it was crazy, let me talk to you about it. And we talk about it, and I talk about it with someone who doesn't know any of the people involved, and maybe they give me some insights of like, do you think they really meant to do that? Or, oh wow, that really sucks, man. Like, I'm so sorry, maybe you should bring that up to them next time you're alone together. Instead of it becoming sort of this like inventing reality ladder of just like talking shit about people. The other thing that I've realized is that it is very easy if you're in that tight group for that thing that you said to get back to the person. So maybe you're in a moment where you're trying to process this, you're trying to get through it, and you're with some subsection of that group. Well, what's the chance that one person in that subsection is going to go back and tell the person who actually did the thing what you were saying about them? In my experience, it was almost every single time. And so it just led to this like confusion and this like, oh, hey, I heard that you said this thing about me mess. When there are miscommunications, a lot of times it's my fault. A lot of conflict, I think, comes out of miscommunication. I heard that this person said this thing about me, like, especially in large friend groups, it can be this like telephone game mess situation that happens. And in those situations, I've felt so frustrated. But I have to remember that some percentage of this is my fault. Like, if there is miscommunication, whether I'm the person saying the thing that eventually got told to the person that shouldn't have heard it, or if I'm the person who's hearing something that, wait a second, that person said this thing, I also have a responsibility in this to check in with people. I have a responsibility to like make sure that that's a true thing that you actually said. And I also have a responsibility to speak clearly. I also have a responsibility to like tell people things that I actually think. When it feels like, why are there so many miscommunications here? And I look outwards at like, well, that person said this thing and that person said this thing, turning it back inwards at myself and going, hold on a second. What can I do to communicate more clearly? What can I do to check in with people before I make assumptions? What can I do to assume best intentions in these situations has led to far fewer conflicts. Tell stories that don't overwrite their experience. There's this point in college where I'd sort of been seeing this girl and we just like ended up breaking things off, and I just kind of felt bad about how I had handled the whole situation. And so I was talking to a friend about it, and every time I would share how I was feeling, he would then share a story about a relationship that he had had. When I tried to say like, yeah, this thing is really bothering me, he would just counter that with, oh yeah, I know what that's like because, and then share this story. And I found in that moment, I was getting more and more frustrated with him. Like, I was sitting there trying to share how I was feeling and kind of unpack what had been going on. But instead, I was just getting like stories from him about his own relationship. And I could certainly like make an argument for where he was coming from. Like, I want to make you feel less alone in this. Like, I can show you that this is okay. In the moment, it was really unhelpful and just kind of felt rude, and it felt like it discounted my experience a little bit. And then I was thinking back to like, are there times in my life where I've done that? Where somebody comes to me to share what's happening, and instead of me just giving them support or giving them sympathy or giving them encouragement, I instead just like say a thing that happened to me that's somewhat similar to their thing. So when we are giving people advice or telling them stories, making sure that that doesn't overwrite their experience. Like, oh, you experienced that thing? Well, let me tell you about the thing that I experienced that's so much worse than that. Like, that's not helpful to anyone ever. Give yourself space to be upset or in disagreement with your friends. We all have different origin stories. We all grew up in different places. We all have different sets of beliefs. We all have different values. We all have different ways that we see the world. Like, obviously, like everyone lived their own life, and there will be cases where there's disagreements, and that's okay. There was a point in my life where I felt like I needed to agree with everything that everyone I was super close friends with believed in, whether that was something political, whether it's something social, whether it's something environmental, or whatever. And a lot of the times we do agree about things fundamentally and we're just talking about things differently, like the semantics of it are just different. But also, it's really okay if I just disagree with you. Like, that doesn't mean that I think you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that we can't be friends. It doesn't mean that we can't be close. It just means that like on this one little itty bitty thing, we might not be in total alignment. And the number of times that I've had conversations with people that have led into these all-out catastrophic arguments is just insane. Like, we don't have to agree 100%. And me trying to convince you of my worldview is not gonna work. How can I accept you as a human being and say, hey, look, we might disagree about this one little thing, but I still love you. You don't have to do everything with someone for them to be your friend. I've found that I have friends that there are very specific things that we do with. There's friends that we just go to the movies together, or there's friends that we just hang out at their house together, or there's friends that like exclusively we're gonna go out to dinner together. And then there are friends that I do much more with. I think in college, part of the reason why this big friend group that I had ended up falling apart was because I felt like I needed to do everything with these people. And there were times when those people didn't want to go see the movie I wanted to see. They didn't want to spend their Saturday the way I wanted to spend my Saturday. They didn't want to hang out in the way I wanted to hang out. And to realize like that's okay. Like, we can still be friends even if we're not together exclusively all of the time. And it sounds kind of like trite and first grade to talk about this, but I think it can be very easy to lean totally on one person or to lean totally on just a couple of people, when in reality we need to have a large support network around us to be able to get everything that we need. Friendship isn't mathematical, it's based on love. A friendship doesn't end when you have nothing in common, it ends when that love is gone. I found myself focusing so much early in my life about what we have in common. Like, okay, you grew up this way and I grew up this way, but like, why is it that we're friends? Like, there must be something here in our past that's like led us to becoming friends, and like, why can we connect so well? It's sort of this like intellectualizing of relationships, and relationships fundamentally are extraordinarily complicated things, like way more complicated than I can intellectualize my way through. And to think about like, why is it that we're friends, or what is it that makes this friendship work, can come out to some very like absurd, weird conclusions that don't actually make sense. Whereas when I've been guided by my heart instead of like, hey, look, I don't know why we're friends. I don't know why we connect. I don't know why there's chemistry between us, but like, I love it when I talk to you. And I just feel like we got a great vibe going. Those friendships always feel stronger. So relationships that I've had in the past where it feels like the connections that we have are slipping away, like, oh, we no longer live in the same place, or we no longer work in the same industry. Can we remain friends? And if I'm spending too much time over intellectualizing those friendships and really trying to like grip onto something, they usually fail. Whereas when I lean back and say, well, how can I approach this out of love? They're usually much more successful. Recognize that some friendships have an expiration date. There was a time in my life where I felt like every friendship I had was gonna last forever. There are some friends that are just friends for a season in your life. I've had friends that we happen to be in the same place at the same time, and we're gonna hit it off and it's gonna be great while we're here at this season in our life, and then our lives change. We get different jobs, we go in different directions, we move to different cities, and suddenly we aren't nearly as close. But that doesn't discount the friendship that we did have. Like, just because we're not able to remain friends now has no bearing on the quality of what our friendship was when it was there. And there have been times where I can kind of see the end coming, and I almost feel this sense of like, rip off the Band-Aid, but it goes back to this sense of like, don't over-intellectualize things, like trying to live in the moment. And when I do that, when I realize like it is fundamentally okay that we might not be friends forever, that there is a point where we will no longer be close, but I can really appreciate being with you now, it makes me value those people so much more than trying to like squeeze someone still into my life when it just doesn't fit, like we aren't in the same place. Just because you're thinking something does not mean you need to say it. I've thought a lot about honesty recently, and there's a piece of honesty which can feel like, if I'm feeling a certain thing, or if I'm thinking a certain thing, I need to communicate that to you. And what I found is that that simply isn't true. Like, yes, I want to communicate openly and honestly with people, right? If they're asking me specifically about something, I want to share from my heart. I want to share as clearly as I can how I actually feel about it. But I've had situations where some people are having a conversation, and I'm maybe halfway in the conversation, and I disagree with what both people are saying in this conversation. And I have two choices at that point. Choice number one, I could jump in and say, hey, I actually think this thing and this is why you're wrong, and like, I've been feeling this way about this whole situation. Or option number two, I could ask them, why do you think that way? That's interesting. Can you tell me more? Which one leads to better relationships? Like, obviously the second one. And this doesn't mean being dishonest and pretending like I agree with it. I'm not saying to give any indication that you agree with someone. My parents used to have this line, which is, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I think there's truth to that. I think there's also a limitation to where that ends. But in many cases, the thing that I want to say in the moment is something that I end up regretting later. And so instead, when I lean back and I just listen and I say, tell me more about that. That's interesting. I don't know if I fully understand that. And I can even say, I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but tell me more about it. I'm coming at it with respect. I'm coming at it with integrity instead of coming at it from a combative, attacking attitude. Tell people that you love them. I have a friend, and every time he leaves a conversation, he says, I love you to the people. And I asked him at one point, I was like, why do you say that? And he said, well, because I do love them. And this might be the last time I talk to this person. And I'd love for the last thing I said to them to be that I love them. It's very taboo, or it's felt very taboo for me in my life to say I love you to friends. But over the years, I've realized just like how much I do love my friends. And maybe this is just among guys, but there's almost this barrier. You can't really say I love you. And maybe it's some deep set homophobia. I don't know. But among guys, it can feel really tough to say I love you. But once you say it once, then it comes a lot easier. And I've really tried to end calls or conversations with close guy friends now just saying, love you, man. Talk to you later. And with the exception of like one or two, I've almost always received, yeah, love you too, dude. Talk soon. If people drift away, it's okay. For a while, I used to really resist when friendships started to fade. That like, I started a new phase of life, you started a new phase of life, and suddenly, whoa, we used to hang out all the time, and now we're not hanging out at all. Like, there has to be some reason for that. There has to be like some explanation, like, what did I do wrong? What did you do wrong? Like, let's break this down, let's figure it out. Whereas most of the time, friendships just fade. Most friendships don't end in some enormous blowout. They just kind of trickle out. And suddenly it's been 6 months since I talked to you, or a year, or 2, or 3, or 5, and that is okay. There's been times in my life where I've tried to grip onto things really tightly. Like, I don't want that relationship to be over. And there's a time and place to like reinforce your relationships and like stay in touch with people, and and be very intentional about the relationships that you're having. But if that chemistry just isn't there anymore, that intangible thing that made you guys connect is just sort of gone, it's okay if you don't talk to them anymore. And it's okay if you no longer feel like you have that thing in common, and it's okay if that energy just feels gone. It doesn't mean you still don't love them. It doesn't mean you still don't want the best for them, but maybe it means you don't have to be as close to them as you once were. And sure, in 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 years, that door might open again, and you might start hanging out. It totally can happen. But at least for me, at this point in my mid-20s, I've found that that grasping, that trying to hang on to things as they're falling away just makes them slip away faster. Relationships have to be organic. They're a two-way street and it has to feel that way. And when things just start to fade and people end up in new phases of life, sometimes they're just gonna end. So thank you so much for watching this video on my strategies to keep good friends. If you found any of this useful, please let me know down in the comments below. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Don't forget to like this and subscribe if you're new here. I'll see you guys next time. Bye everybody.